Last week I came on a Instagram live video and I was upside down for the first half, and then some nice people messaged me. So I thought this time I would record a video and then upload it to try and get rid of all the issues. Anyway, I promised you that I would share a vintage pattern that we have at home, essentially a vintage blanket we have from my my husband's family. This blanket has been in his family for ages. I think it's a Second World War or post-World War blanket, and it uses a V-stitch pattern, and it's really simple. And I was telling you last week that essentially the great thing about crochet is that during the Second World War and just after, people would reuse yarn all the time. So they would rip up their jumpers, and when jumpers or cardigans got really holey and they couldn't darn and couldn't repair them, they would rip them back and they would include them in a blanket. And it's just such a glorious celebration of colour. It's absolutely beautiful. So this week I have been making a version of this for our family, and I thought it was a really nice kind of thing to do during the period of isolation and lockdown. And so in the evenings I have been trying to do a row a day, almost to mark the period of us being in isolation. Now I crochet a lot, and so my speed has increased, and so you might think, actually, Emma, that's more rows than we've been in lockdown. That's true. But what I thought I'd do is take that blanket, which is it's larger than a single British single bed, and I would work out what the stitch number was, and I would post on my blog the basic stitch pattern for this stitch. I would also post the number of stitches you're going to need for a single bed blanket, and also just if you were interested, you could do the same. And it's it's sort of virus victory. I was going to call it the victory blanket. I think I'll just call it the vintage blanket if we get to the stage of feeling okay enough about calling it the virus blanket. If you are a beginner crochet, this is really easy for you to do. There are 3 basic stitches you need, and I'm just going to show you a couple. I'm going to show you how I've begun the blanket, and essentially in a really quiet moment you can add a row of whatever yarn. And ideally, the beauty of this blanket is that it's crazy colours. So you just, as you see here, my husband's grandma has just stopped one colour and gone straight into another. There's a beauty to this blanket that it is so mad and crazy. And my tip to you is I tend to, when I'm thinking about colours, I tend to be a bit kind of controlling about it. There are colours I like, colours I don't like, and I will tend to veer back. What I've tried to do with this one is completely go against that and go with colours that I've got in my yarn stash or I've got available at home, and try not to think hard about it. What I will say is that I have I just couldn't resist putting a little order into it. And I was talking last week about how a neutral colour can just tone something down and just bring just an order which allows other colours to pop. So what I've decided to do with my blanket, you don't have to do that, is every 8th row I'm going to put a cream. I have enough cream double knit yarn in my stash to include an 8th row will be cream. So we'll just see how we get going. I haven't repeated any colours yet, You could make this really super stylish, just go for about 3 tones of one colour. That would work really well with maybe a contrast pop. So you might want to go for blues and then put a red or a yellow in just to contrast it. You could do that. You could go with greys, different greys with maybe a cream just to add a little light. That's totally possible. If you do make a vintage VE blanket, please will you share your progress. So let's just get started. If you're a crocheter, you'll know what I mean when I say this. Essentially, the pattern, the stitch repeat is 3 plus 1 for the foundation chain. And essentially what you do, if you, along the bottom, and I will tell you this, I will admit to you, if you're making a blanket and this is, the chain along the bottom often feels a little bit tight, and this one is too tight, if I'm honest with you. You can get around that by ensuring you keep a really loose stitch when you're making, or another way to do it, and I should have done it, I'm not a beginner, for heaven's sakes, Emma, is to go up half a size crochet hook. So if you were using a 3.5 crochet hook, which this is my favorite size, you perhaps want to use the 4 or 4.5 crochet hook, 4.5 millimeters or 4 millimeters to do the chain along the bottom. Anyway, so what we will do is I'll just show you. I'll use the 4. I'm going to just show you quickly. I'm doing a chain. I did a slip knot to start with, and I'm going to put all of the stitch tutorials are on my blog already, showing different stitches, but I'm going to put the stitch pattern, I'm going to do some written instructions, and I'm going to put links to tutorials. So I'm going to do I think just 10, so multiples of 3, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 plus 1 is 10, and I'm just going to do a double crochet stitch. I know I'm going to be fast, but the tutorials on my blog, I'm doing essentially 9 double crochet stitches to create the base. I really like doing a base because it really helps you to have a certain foundation for your stitches. And then what we do with crochet is you go almost up the stairs, so you create chains to go up. So you go 1, 2, 3, turn, when you've got, turn your crochet around, and I'm going to miss the stitch at the bottom and another stitch, 2 stitches. I'm going to do 2 trebles into that next stitch. I'm going to create a chain to create the space for the following row, and I'm going to do 2 trebles into that same stitch, the same foundation stitch below. I'm going to miss 2 stitches, and I'm going to do another V stitch. So it's 2 trebles separated, 4, there's 4 trebles, but it's 2 trebles with a chain in the middle, and then another 2 trebles. Okay, and we're going to miss 1, 2, and then we're going to do 1 treble to finish off the sides of the blanket at the very end, and the very last chain stitch, which you'll see I'm finding hard to do. I realised I wasn't smiling, and there you go. So that's essentially a very mini version. I'm going to cut this off, this yarn, and then I'm going to I'm just going to add in the next colour. Adding in colours if you're a beginner, just fasten off and reattach. If you've got a lot of experience, what you can do is leave just not finish off your last stitch. Leave 2 hooks on, 2 stitches on, and then pull through the new colour to add in the new colour. And then we're going to do 3 chains. Now my good friend Lucy from Attic 24 will work over her ends, and she will always finish her end. She will always sew her ends off. And what we're doing here is you're going into the center of that V where we did the chain stitch. That's where you're going to put your next 2 trebles separated by a chain, and then another 2 trebles. Look, I'm going to find the middle of the V, which is there. I'm going to do 2 trebles, 1 chain, and then 2 trebles. And then just when you get right to the end, you do 1 treble into the top of the 3rd chain from the previous row. So we've got the next row. So there you go. And we're just going to keep adding. I have a midway through a cream row here, and I'm just going to make my way across. Yes, I should have gone for a looser stitch. I didn't. I'm just carrying on. And sometimes we all do that. We just get on with it. What you need for crochets: some old yarn, ends of yarn, a crochet hook, little pair of scissors ideally, but any scissors is fine, and a tapestry needle, a large needle which you can easily thread some yarn through. So that's what you need. Okay. As I say, the instructions, very basic instructions, and the pattern will be on my blog, Emma Varnam, all one word, Emma varnam.co.uk. If you get involved and you're making a blanket, please will you send me some of the images to Emma Varnam UK on Instagram or Emma Varnam Designs on Facebook. I'd love to see. I'm trying to grow something really positive from our time in isolation. For those of you, like I am, a key worker, you'll be working really hard and you might say, I just don't even have the brain space. I'm trying really hard to find a little bit of time at the end of the day just to relax and to not always even think about circumstances, but just to work through the worry and the fingers into the stitches. It is an absolute pleasure to see you, and hopefully I'll see you very soon.